I listened to Harold Ford. I don't know what he was watching because I think he wasn't watching the debate that I was in yesterday. I think we did great. The press is so dishonest in this country. It's amazing. So many things I said were debunked, totally debunked, like Charlottesville. I have a list of 7 different things, but I thought I did a great job.
The moderators were unfair to me, but I think I did great. That was the main message that Donald Trump was sharing with the folks over at Fox and Friends. This is a phone call that he made to Fox and Friends this morning as he was reflecting on his debate performance. Now, he believes he did a great job in last night's debate, and he's not coping at all. There's no cope going on, except you're about to hear that there's a lot of cope going on. The former president called into Fox and Friends just to share, honestly, in my mind, how much he's kind of panicking about his debate performance last night. And it's not just about his self-reflection. It's also about what everyone else on the right and in right-wing media has been saying about his debate performance. We'll get to that later in the show. But for now, let's hear more of what he had to say.
What is your review of your performance?
Well, I looked at the poll numbers. I listened to Harold Ford. I don't know what he was watching because I think he wasn't watching the debate that I was in yesterday. I think we did great. It was 3-1. It was a rigged deal, as I assumed it would be, because when you looked at the fact that they were correcting everything and not correcting with her. And we knew it when it was 100% good coverage for her over the last month or last year. I looked at it and only bad coverage of me, no matter what. The press is so dishonest in this country, it's amazing. Now, I didn't mind because, frankly, I was pretty sure that's what they would do. CNN was much more honorable. The debate we had with Biden was a much more honorably run debate.
Was it much more honorable than how the moderators at ABC handled the debate last night? Or was it a great debate because you were running against and debating a man who was showing signs of significant cognitive decline? I mean, I totally understand feeling real good about the CNN debate against Joe Biden. I can also understand lying to yourself about how it's everyone else's fault that you performed poorly in last night's debate. But if you want to improve, you have to take personal responsibility. And the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump just didn't seem prepared. I think he made a big mistake in underestimating his opponent, Kamala Harris. And he didn't just internally underestimate Kamala Harris. He very publicly underestimated Kamala Harris. He kept calling her stupid, his supporters and his campaign kept calling her stupid. And so they created this narrative in their minds that it was gonna be a cakewalk for Trump, that Kamala Harris has nothing going on up there. And when you underestimate your opponent like that, more often than not, you are in for a world of trouble. And even Elon Musk admitted that Kamala Harris did pretty well. She delivered. And I'm sure that was difficult for someone like Elon Musk to admit, but it is the truth in terms of the optics. And I wanna be clear, the optics are obviously different from the substance, right? But when it comes to debates, optics are more important than substance, I'm sad to say. And so while I feel unhappy with the lack of in-depth policy debate and discussion, I do think optically, Donald Trump did poorly, Kamala Harris did well. She appeared to be more prepared. She appeared more presidential. She appeared confident. She was smiling. She was looking at, the moderators, looking at Donald Trump. We've talked about all of this during our debate coverage, but you get the picture. But I just love the fact that Donald Trump is doing this comparative analysis between the moderators over at CNN versus the moderators at ABC. Because yeah, the CNN debate did go really well. It went really well because you were debating Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, much younger, sharper. And while I do have a few gripes with some of the moderation last night, really Donald Trump, if he was prepared, could have found a way to deflect if he needs to and go to a talking point that he finds to be effective with the independent voters that he's trying to appeal to. But that would take practice, that would take strategizing, that would take a lot of hard work behind the scenes. I heard that Tulsi Gabbard was preparing him for the debate. maybe they should reconsider who they hire to prepare Donald Trump for the debate. But with that said, Trump then goes on to complain about the ABC News moderators failing to fact check Kamala Harris. And here, while he does sound whiny and incredibly annoying, I do think he has a bit of a point. I'll explain how when we come back from this clip.
So many things I said were debunked, totally debunked, like Charlottesville. I have a list of 7 different things, and she could say anything she wanted, everything. Every time I spoke, and my stuff was right, they'd correct you. I thought it was terrible from the standpoint of ABC. They're the most dishonest, in my opinion, the most dishonest news organization, and that's saying a lot because they're all essentially really dishonest. But I thought I did a great job. It was 3-on-1. And I thought I did a great job. Now, we sent you the polls, but every single poll last night had me winning like 90-10. We had C-SPAN at one point was at 80-20, and I don't know how it finished. That was late last night, so I have no idea, but it was at 80-20.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
Okay. We have to contend with 2 different things that he said there. So number 1 is the claim against the moderators. I'm going to get to that in a second. The second thing that he wants to bring up is how well he was doing based on the polls. And I mean, he cited C-SPAN as if like the C-SPAN poll would contain a bunch of C-SPAN viewers who were like total. Anyway, we'll get to that because I actually have some of the polling and all of that stuff after the debate was over. But first, were the moderators unfair? Look, I do think that there were some clear examples of Kamala Harris saying something that was dishonest or misleading, and they didn't fact check her, while they certainly did fact check Donald Trump. Now, I was happy with them fact checking Donald Trump, but you also have to be fair. So one of the prime examples that I'll bring up is early on in the debate, she mentioned how Trump threatened that this country would be a bloodbath if he loses the election. This is a story that we actually covered a few months ago because that was the dominant narrative in the press that Donald Trump said that. But we went in and we actually watched his rally and we showed you the evidence of what he actually said. He didn't say that the country will be a bloodbath. He said that the economy will be a bloodbath and the loss of manufacturing jobs would be a bloodbath if he doesn't get elected. Okay, that is very different from, the narrative that was playing out in the press about how, Donald Trump is threatening a bloodbath if he doesn't win the election. He was being very specific about the economy. He'd be probably best served in not using bloodbath or that kind of rhetoric because I think it will be used against him dishonestly. But I guess when you really think about it, if it's the legacy media or the corporate media kind of perpetuating that lie about the bloodbath, I guess you can't really expect the corporate media to do that fact check on Kamala Harris in real time. So, but it is true. There were a few examples of her kind of getting away with saying things that were misleading or dishonest. Now, let's get to the ridiculous claim about how the polls show that he won the debate by a lot. And I'm sure you guys can all guess that that's not true. So let's go to CNN's flash poll. I'll give you the results. They found that debate watchers said 63% to 37% that Harris turned in a better performance on stage in Philadelphia. Prior to the debate, the same voters were evenly split on which candidate would perform more strongly, with 50% saying Harris would do so and 50% saying that Trump would. So it's interesting because going in, you have these voters who have a preconceived notion of how the debate is going to play out. And then after the debate, you see Kamala Harris gain a 13-point lead over Donald Trump. And afterward, 96% of Harris supporters who tuned in said that their chosen candidate had done a better job, while a smaller 69% majority of Trump supporters credited him with having a better night. So I think that's telling because while the majority of Trump supporters still believe that he did better than Kamala Harris did, fact of the matter is there's a sizable portion of Trump supporters who did not feel that he did a good job. And that is also reflected in what some of the conservative pundits have to say. Now, the results of the flash poll mark a shift from the reaction to the June presidential debate, which should be unsurprising to all of us, when voters who watched the matchup between Trump and Biden said 67% to 33% that Trump outperformed his Democratic rival. And can we just pause for a second and acknowledge the fact that the reason why Donald Trump wants to run against Biden so badly instead of Kamala Harris is because he knows the truth about how much easier it would be to beat Joe Biden rather than Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is still a little more competitive than Joe Biden is because she's younger. And even though she's in the current administration as Biden's vice president, fact of the matter is, voters see her as someone new, someone fresh. They're kind of sick of the Trump era to some extent, the divisiveness, the anger, the rage, pitting people against one another. I think a lot of voters look at Kamala Harris and they see a different path forward. And I did notice, and this was also reflected in some of the reporting, that Kamala Harris actually attacked Trump more than Trump attacked her. And I think in his debate prep, I'm just guessing, this is obviously speculation, he was told, whatever you do, don't attack her. Because when you think about Trump's attacks against Kamala Harris, they're usually about her being a woman or her race, how dumb she is. But I think they forgot to drill into his head, it is okay to attack her on substance. I don't know if he's capable of doing that. He didn't do that. And in fact, if you look at the number of attacks that Kamala Harris did against Trump and vice versa, Kamala Harris did attack him more, but obviously she attacked him on substance. Now, the Washington Post also spoke to voters who have a preference on who they want to win the election and how they felt about the candidate's performance. Jason from Wisconsin wants Trump to win. He's clear about that, but he also believes in objective reality, and I really commend him for that. He told the Washington Post, quote, Trump was on defense. Harris stuck to her points, was coherent, and frankly, more professional than I have ever seen her. Trump missed too many opportunities. And I definitely agree with him on that. Look, if he wanted to demagogue on immigration and migrants, it's kind of curious that he chose the eating cats and ducks story, which is completely debunked, rather than, I don't know. I mean, there was a whole hearing in the House of Representatives yesterday. And in that hearing, they had all sorts of family members of people who were victimized, murdered in a lot of cases by migrants. I mean, it was like a wall-to-wall hearing of stories like that. And rather than, exploit one of those stories for his own purposes, he went to one of the most ridiculous examples that's been debunked, complete unfounded rumor. So he also lashed out on Fox, by the way, which I thought was hilarious. He did so while he was on Fox. So I want to give him kudos for this. I think it's hilarious. Let's take a look.
Before the debate happened last night, the Kamala Harris people said that they would actually like to do another debate in October. And I know that last night Fox News sent letters to your campaign and her campaign offering 3 dates of debates moderated by Martha and Brett. One is October 9th in Arizona.
Well, I wouldn't want to have Martha and Brett. I'd love to have somebody else other than Martha and Brett. I'd love to have, frankly, Sean or Jesse or Laura. Somebody else. Let's give other people a shot. But I didn't think Martha and Brett were good last night. I thought Jesse was fantastic last night. What he said, Jesse really got it. Jesse said Trump won that debate. We won that debate by a lot. No, I wouldn't want Martha involved. Everyone had me winning the debate.
So, Mr. President,
I don't know that I want to do another debate.
Right. So you do. Right at the end, as I was interrupting. So you don't know if you want to do another debate. It sounds like you're a no.
Well, I'd be less inclined to because we had a great night.
I mean, he gave the whole game away in that answer, right? Because Brett Baier last night, and you're going to hear from him in our next segment, made clear that he felt that Donald Trump lost the debate. And so Trump likes to retaliate. I don't know what Jesse Watters had to say about it. I feel like Jesse Watters should only be listened to when he wants to go on one of his funny straw rants. Other than that, I mean, what a waste of time. But Bret Baier was critical. And so I think that's the reason why he's now kind of trying to renege on a future debate on Fox with Martha McCallum and Bret Baier. But something that probably stings quite a bit. We just got word that RFK Jr., the independent candidate who dropped out of the race to avoid being a spoiler candidate for Donald Trump, he dropped out, endorsed Donald Trump. He has said that Trump lost the debate. I'm going to read you his exact quote. I think that Vice President Harris clearly won the debate in terms of her delivery, her polish, or her organization, her preparation, Kennedy declared. I think on substance, President Trump wins in terms of his governance, but he didn't tell that story. In fact, the first question was an extraordinary lost opportunity because it was a question, which is, are Americans better off 4 years later? And there's really no argument for saying that they are. So incredible. And RFK Jr. isn't the only person who has opened up about how he feels about Donald Trump's debate performance. A lot of his allies have also spoken up about it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.